Do we have the little lame duck watch sounder thing? We only have so long to play it. It doesn't apply to that much of any particular year. I want to get our money's worth from this. Do we have it? Can you play it?
Hell no, you can't!
Thank you. The lame duck session of Congress this year is busy, it turns out. Day-long fake filibusters, scheduled and then unscheduled votes, bills that have ended up passing the House more than once in the same session. The lame duck session of Congress that everybody thought would be really lame is at least very busy. It's running all the time. Go, go, go. It's the sort of running, though, that is like running on a treadmill. It's exhibiting lots of activity. It is sweating. It is maybe wearing a little lycra. But no matter how much time it spends sprinting on that treadmill, there has, as yet, been very little actual forward travel. But there is a ton of important stuff going on, and it is all in motion. It just doesn't seem like stuff is getting checked off the list. What is likely to get done at this point? Take Don't Ask, Don't Tell, for example. The president had made ending the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy a big campaign promise. He has reiterated it many times. The repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell is attached to what is largely considered to be a must-pass piece of legislation. It's the National Defense Authorization Act. It's the bill that funds the military. It never doesn't pass. Democrats almost uniformly back repeal. Some Republicans have even signaled they may vote for repeal. But when Majority Leader Harry Reid brought it to a surprise vote this week, it failed. Repeal advocates were beside themselves. Getting anything done on Don't Ask, Don't Tell this year started to seem like a pipe dream. But then after that surprise vote that failed, there was an equally surprising announcement.
I was really pleased when he said he'd bring it to the floor, that is to the calendar, for where it could be acted on under Rule 14.
Really pleased? So Don't Ask, Don't Tell will be voted on this year as a separate bill under Rule 14. What's Rule 14? Turns out Rule 14 lets you bring a bill to the floor without it having to go through committee, which presumably means it is fast-tracked to be able to still pass now in the lame duck session. So that's going to happen sometime in the next week, in theory. Then there's also the START treaty, the nukes agreement with Russia. 67 senators must vote to ratify it. It's a treaty. President Obama has made this a big priority. He's lobbied Democrats and Republicans for months. Just about every bold-faced Republican name in national security has said that this should be ratified. And the White House wants you to know that they think it will get done.
I think START is going to pass by the end of this year with a pretty big bipartisan vote.
But when? Before or after the tax deal that's got everybody all lathered up? Before or after the big defense spending bill? Before or after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Before or after the DREAM Act, the immigration bill? That legislation was supposed to be voted on this week, but Senator Reid pulled it at the last minute. It passed the House, went to the Senate. Senator Reid pulled it. But about that, he said, when he was asked about it, his comment was, stay tuned. Stay tuned? Apparently, pulling it was a strategic move because there's some other plan to pass it that wasn't evident before he pulled it. The one thing that is scheduled now is a key preliminary vote on this tax deal that has everybody very excited. We thought that would be this weekend, but it will apparently now be late on Monday. That's what they say for now. This is like watching an anthill. Watching an anthill, you can tell it's an anthill. You can tell there's activity. You can tell there are ants. You can tell the general direction in which the ants are moving in the anthill. But if you ask me to explain what's actually going on here, what does this mean? The only thing I can honestly say to you, human to human, is look, ants. You tell me what you think it means. Joining us now is Ken Strickland, NBC News Senate producer. The guy to whom I usually say, Ken, look, ants. What does it mean? This is all very confusing, what's going on in the Senate these days, Ken.
The Senate is a very confusing place. It has tons of arcane rules, and if you really want to win, you have to know how the Senate works and how to use the rules. And if you want to win badly, you have to know how to use the rules to the best of your ability and play hardball and use those rules. It may upset people. That's really what it comes down to when you talk about the rules in the Senate.
Well, Rule 14, for example, which everybody got to look up this week. Rule 14, as it has been shorthand explained to me, means that you can bring something up without putting it through the committee process, which would imply that it can move quickly in the Senate. Senator Lieberman saying that Senator Reid may do that with a standalone bill on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Is that true, that basic understanding, and do you think it might work?
That is true. he did a couple of things, one of which is very important, which is by stripping the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell out of the defense authorization bill, they've made the fight more narrowed. When it was in the defense authorization bill, you were talking about a bill that had so many controversial things in it. There was even abortion language in that bill. And so by taking it out, you're basically saying, we don't want to fight about all these other things. Let's just fight about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So you have a new bill. As remember in high school history, when a bill becomes a law, it goes to committee. It can stay in committee for weeks, for months. It can go to committee and die. But if there's something that the majority leader feels a priority, he can use Rule 14, which basically is saying we're going to bypass the committee, and within 2 days we can bring that bill to the floor. It's often done when there's a priority, like say there's an emergency and somebody needs money, a state needs money for a disaster, or if somebody thinks the bill is actually going to go to committee and die. So this does get it to the floor quickly, but they still will have to fight.
On the issue of timing and the sequencing of these different priorities, Republicans, of course, threatened in writing to block anything and everything in the Senate until the Senate moved on extending the Bush tax cuts. Obviously, there's been a lot of fighting this week about the substantive value of whether or not that should or shouldn't be done. But just in terms of whether or not stuff gets done in the Senate, what exactly are they waiting for? Does it just need to be a deal, or do they need to? Is their understanding that something will have to be signed, passed, and signed into law before they'll allow anything else to happen?
That letter actually said that there were going to be two things that they wanted to have done first. One was the Bush tax cuts. The other one was the government funding bill. On Saturday, the money that funds the government runs out. Not this Saturday, next Saturday, the 18th. So they still have to figure out what to do with that. So basically, Republicans were saying, let's deal with those two things first. Now they are literally on the tax bill, and they want to get that done and get that passed. On Monday, they'll have a key procedural vote that'll basically show whether or not the will is there for a bipartisan Senate to pass that bill. We'll see that on Monday.
On the issue of the DREAM Act, Ken, the common wisdom was that it has been for a long time that the DREAM Act has nowhere to go in the Senate. Right. It's dead there. It's as dead can be. Majority Leader Reid does not seem to be behaving like that is the case, in his view, in the Senate. What do you think is going on with this immigration measure right now?
We talked about all these things get lumped together. We talked about the Bush tax cuts and the spending bill. In addition to the DREAM Act and START and Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Democrats have two opponents if you're a Democrat. There's the Republican, and then there's the calendar. They need to get all of this done by the end of the year. If you try to game this out procedurally, if you thought about how they're going to do the tax cuts, how they're going to finish funding the government, that would actually get you almost to the 18th already. And then it's a question of what procedurally can Harry Reid do to get these other things done? Why is he so optimistic about the DREAM Act? Well, generally, I think that's political. I don't think that anybody who is a strong supporter of something wants to go to the floor and say, I don't have the votes, I'm wasting my time. There's also a notion that sometimes if you think something is close, and I hear that there are some Republicans who are interested in talking about the DREAM Act, and there are some Democrats who are interested in not talking about it, but when you think it's close, sometimes just the notion of having the clerk call the roll and making members come to the floor, that might shake a few people loose right before Christmas who are eager to get home. So it's really, somebody told me a great story today, a great quote about how the Senate works, that anything is possible, but not everything is probable. So it's hard to know how these other three measures get taken care of. When I say that, I mean Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the DREAM Act, and the START Treaty. They got to pick a priority and then try to figure out strategically how they can get it done.
Nobody expected in the lame duck session that it was going to be both an action movie and a suspense movie, and in my case, both an anthill and a treadmill. But as many metaphors as we can use to try to help explain this, we will keep trying. Ken Strickland, NBC News Senate producer, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rachel.